Good afternoon, Waves. That's right, that's how I know my family's here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Ebling. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Affairs for Seaver College and the original great George Pepperdine College. Anybody from GPC out there? Outstanding. Hey, thank you all so much for being a part of this milestone day in the history of Pepperdine. I couldn't be more excited about everybody being here. And thanks to everybody who played a role in organizing this exceptional day. How was the morning? Wasn't that just a beautiful experience? So many people here contributed to that, and that's what makes this place so neat. You know, it's been an incredible 75th anniversary celebration. A lot of incredible memories formed here, and I can think of no better way to conclude our celebration by welcoming and honoring one of Pepperdine's most historic treasures. Now, we are so delighted today to welcome back to Malibu one of our oldest friends from the original campus, 79th in Vermont. And at a youthful 71 years of age, though not looking a day over 2 years old, of course, Dolores has witnessed all manner of shenanigans and adventures in this bright blue and orange history of ours. And after an extended sojourn traveling the world for the past several years, we're so happy to welcome her back to Pepperdine, where she will quietly settle in the tranquility overlooking the Pacific waves and, of course, our Pepperdine waves. Now, if you haven't already had the chance to do so, I hope that you'll check out and grab one of those commemorative Founders Day programs that are so nice, because inside is a nice history of Dolores and her fabled journey over the years on page 7. Well, to begin today's program, I'd like to introduce Melissa Nikinen. She's the head of special collections in the University Archives, and she's going to share with us Dolores' humble beginnings at George Pepperdine College in Los Angeles and the many adventures she had in her first decades. Later, our very own president, Andrew Benton, will lead us in Dolores' official homecoming, unveiling, and dedication as we welcome her back here to Adamson Plaza. Melissa.
Thank you, Matt. I'm so happy to be here today. As a librarian and an archivist, I'm accustomed to reporting on historical facts, but the story of Dolores really goes beyond facts into the realm of stories, of memories, and even of campus legends. Although I often think of the archives as the memory keeper for the university, it's really our people, our alumni, our administrators, and our staff who are also the true memory keepers of our institution. And I'm really grateful to the alumni and others who've shared with me and some of my colleagues their stories of Dolores to help us piece together her history. It seems that many people, especially those who lived, who worked, and who studied on the Los Angeles campus, has a Dolores story. And I'm sure if we polled the audience today, we would have many delightful stories to hear, and what a treat that would be. But instead, I'm going to do my best to share with you the Dolores story as I've understood it, and starting with her very beginnings in 1941. So in March of that year, which was just 3.5 short years after George Pepperdine founded his college, and while the campus was still very much under construction, there appeared a short announcement, in a very casual announcement, in the student newspaper, The Graphic, regarding some landscaping changes. And I want to read for you what the announcement said. It said, "In the center of the fountain will be a concrete baby from whose arm water will spout by means of an electric pump. The figure was selected from King's Royal Art Stone Pottery Yard." So Dolores was on her way. Of course, that figure wasn't known as Dolores yet, and I don't believe the students reading that announcement could really grasp what an icon she would become over the years. For such humble beginnings as a so-called concrete baby from a pottery yard, royal though it may have been, Dolores became a silent campus observer, although very important, a trustworthy confidant, a quiet adventurer, and an unprotesting subject of numerous pranks. As planned, the 2.5-foot-tall, curly-haired little girl sat in the middle of the central fountain of Pepperdine's early campus on 79th and Vermont in Los Angeles. Although there are several stories on the origin of her name, Dolores was most likely named after a Frank Sinatra song that became very popular that spring and which we will actually get to hear later in the program today. This fountain where Dolores found her home was the hub of student activity on campus. And from her watchful post, Dolores would have observed all the happenings of student life. The early years were filled with new traditions. Dolores stood by as all-school picnics, luau's, Western days, and even water fights took place around her. But she wasn't always just an innocent bystander. She wore leis for the luau's, she donned cowboy hats for Western days, and honestly, what water fight would have been complete if someone hadn't ended up in her fountain? Speaking of what went into the fountain, alumnus Bob Andrew recalled a story for us recently. He says he was sitting in his second-story classroom watching English professor Dr. Wade Ruby rush late to class. And as he and the other students watched out the second-story window, Dr. Ruby dodged a bird and fell into the fountain. Needless to say, class was canceled that day. Some alumni also remember that after a member of the sub-T fraternity got engaged, the brothers of the fraternity would serenade the fiancé with their signature tune, Sub-T Rose, while the young man climbed a ladder up to the second-story window to meet his fiancée. And after this very moving and sweet moment, the brothers would then promptly toss the newly engaged man into the fountain. Others say that the Dolores Fountain was home to ducklings at one point and even a snake at another. On one occasion, at least one occasion, the fountain was filled with soap bubbles, and the campus queen, as Dolores was sometimes known, was found dressed in a towel, holding a bar of soap in her hand, framed for the disruption. In fact, dressing Dolores and decorating her became a long-standing campus tradition. And this is documented in some of the photographs in the archives, such as the one that you see to my right over here, next to the box. Dolores also, oops, did we lose the sound?
There we go. Is it still there?
Hello? Good, okay.
Here, try.
Sometimes Dolores wore the beanie that all first-year students were made to wear, perhaps in solidarity with them as they adjusted to their new college life. In the fall of 1965, though, the first-year students decided to revolt against the beanie wearing. They created a huge green beanie out of paper, and they burned it in the fountain. And the yearbook that year says that some of the students even threw their own beanies into the fire as well. Dolores's watchful era was filled with many highs and lows for Pepperdine. The same year as her appearance on campus, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and the U.S. joined World War II. Like many young people from around the country, Pepperdine sent some of its own students off to war. Several years later, Dolores watched as the soldiers returned to campus, sparking a celebratory processional down the promenade. Sadly, 6 students never returned. 20 years later, in August of 1965, Dolores watched again, this time as law enforcement officers came onto campus temporarily, which was used as a staging ground during the Watts riots, which were held nearby. Although Pepperdine remained safe during this time, thankfully, the tumultuous times did leave their mark on the campus. Dolores became a part of more personal milestones as well. Who knows, for example, how many whispered proposals took place under her approving gaze? Graduating students had a chance to make Dolores part of their parting memories of Pepperdine. For many years, the seniors processed by the fountain on their way to the outdoor graduation ceremony. I like to imagine that students paused to smile at Dolores as they celebrated their accomplishments, perhaps nostalgic for their college days and yet hopeful for their futures. There's one very sweet photo from 1946 of a husband and wife holding hands and wearing their graduation robes, posing in front of Dolores on their graduation day. And I'm willing to bet there are many more similar photos to that one in the personal collections of our alumni. One of the most fondly remembered fountain activities was the Tuesday night hymn sing. With Dolores and the fountain lit up, as you can see in the photo to my left, and the students singing in 4-part harmony, I can only imagine what a peaceful and moving experience this must have been for students leading otherwise very busy lives. Dolores had become such a symbol that she ended up serving as the narrator in the 1949 yearbook. And the yearbook was complete with little drawings of Dolores in various places around campus. Reinforcing the image of Dolores as campus observer and confidant, she had something really interesting to say about the campus administrators and faculty in her role as narrator, and I want to read this to you. This is what she said. "I know them all. They are learned men and women who follow much the same pursuits as you. I know because I've heard them laugh and joke and seen them on the way to the oasis for Coke or tea. I've seen them sit by my pool and meditate, and I've noticed the look of perplexity which seems to say so much to do and so little time. One would think that as a frozen statue, Dolores' existence would have been limited to what she could experience from her fountain. But, oh no, that is far from the truth. In fact, Dolores had many adventures that took her far from her post in the middle of campus. I've heard from several sources that the chorus would sometimes kidnap Dolores to take her on their chorus tours, even making her the guest of honor when they would go out to eat as a group. Apparently, on one occasion, unbeknownst to then Associate Dean of Students Lucille Todd, Dolores had been stored in the closet of the room where Dean Todd was staying. Can you imagine the surprise she must have had when she opened her closet door and saw Dolores gazing back at her? Dolores disappeared on a number of other occasions as well, and her absence was always reported in the graphic with a mixture of humor and concern. One of the more notable disappearances took place in October of 1966, following a convention of Christian colleges that had been held on campus. The Little Lost Lady of the Lake, as she was known throughout the year in graphic articles, had been gone for several months when she mysteriously reappeared in a wooden casket on the steps of a minister's home in Sacramento. It was finally discovered that Dolores had been kidnapped by students from Columbia Christian College, who had then had her restored, actually, before returning her anonymously. Despite this attempt at restoration, however, poor Dolores had been through too many adventures in her first 25 years, and she was quite worn. Throughout the spring of 1967, her perch was renovated, and a new Dolores statue was in place by the following fall. This time, Dolores no longer held her signature towel, and her hands were placed by her side. Dolores remained in this new arrangement for the rest of her time on the Los Angeles campus. When the Malibu campus opened in 1972, Dolores stayed in Los Angeles, where several of Pepperdine's graduate programs were headquartered. These were quieter days. The students often came to class in the evenings, and there were fewer all-school activities taking place on the lawn. But Dolores had become such a symbol that the dean of the School of Education, Ole Tigner, created a Dolores Ward in order to honor outstanding leadership in Christian education. In July of 1981, at the last alumni reunion that took place on the Los Angeles campus before it sailed to the Crenshaw Christian Center, Dolores was carefully and reverently removed from her pedestal, a post she had held for 4 decades at that point. As you can see in the photo on your far right, the 3 individuals who removed Dolores from her fountain were Ole Tigner, Dean of the School of Education, Kenton Anderson, who was Dean of the School of Business Management, and James McGoldrick, alumnus and professor of law. It's only fitting that Professor McGoldrick is here with us today and will help with the unveiling, as will Allie Tigner, a Pepperdine alumna and wife of Ole Tigner. On September 25th, 1982, Dolores was installed in her new home in Malibu, just a few feet from where we stand now. And she was installed during one great day, the celebration of 10 years, the first 10 years on the Malibu campus. Within a matter of weeks, the graphic was already reporting on Dolores' initiation to Malibu, which included, of course, painted toenails. Dolores enjoyed a number of years here, where students continued to dress her up and decorate her, much the way they decorate the Rock today. In the late 1980s, she quietly disappeared, and it seemed that her era had come to an end. Until now. Today, Dolores' history begins anew.
Oh, Melissa, that was so nice. If you haven't gotten to know Melissa Nikinen and her amazing team at the libraries and the archives, you really should. Kevin Miller, every time I hear stories from you, it enriches my Pepperdine story, because I know that I'm a part of it, and I hope you all feel the same. So thank you so very much. And now we couldn't have brought Dolores home, of course, without the help of one of her greatest advocates and fans, President Andrew Benton. After several years of wondering her whereabouts, he also felt that she should come back home here. And his support has been absolutely instrumental, and we're so excited that he's here to join us to officially welcome her home. So I'd like to invite him up now, President Benton.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks for your own significant efforts in making this day possible.
So you are all witnesses today to the return of Dolores to her rightful home, and it's a special and sweet return. She's been on a remarkable road trip, as you can tell from the crate. She's been out having a good time all over the world, and but now she's got some difficult work to do, and we're going to chat with her in just a little bit about that. You've heard about her storied history, and it's our hope that this will be a very special place on our campus, just as it was at 79th and Vermont, not the old campus, but the original campus over which she presided for a number of years. Actually, our dream is even bigger than just bringing Dolores home, but we want for Dolores and a lot of other traditions of the university to call all of our alumni home, to return to alma mater and to engage deeply in the future of this wonderful place. As witnesses, you play an important role today, but there are some special individuals that we've asked to come, and I'm going to invite them in just a minute. You all know about Barney's bench, on which Mr. Pepperdine sits today, a life-size replica of the man who founded this place. You know about the Rock, assembled at Seaver College for a number of years, and now Dolores. This microphone's very sensitive, isn't it? Let me invite Christy Myers, the president of the Student Government Association, to come forward, and Alex Fischler, who's worked so hard as a part of the Student Alumni Organization, Mrs. Allie Tegner, class of 47, wife of the late and great Ole Tegner, and a dear, dear friend of this institution, and finally Professor James McGoldrick, class of 1966, who's an old friend of Dolores from the Los Angeles campus. Earlier today, I'll just hold it. Okay. Earlier today, we took her out of her traveling crate, out of the dark and into the light. And I've been, ever since coming down here, I've wanted to peek under there to see if there's anything that's happened to her in the period of time since then, but I'm going to trust the good behavior of the present Seaver population, and I'm going to ask my four colleagues, Christy, Alex, Allie, and Professor Jim, on the count of three, to unveil Dolores and to welcome her home. 1, 2, and 3. Let me see if I can slip over here. And we've got this great commemorative plaque that reads, Dolores, Pepperdine's sweetheart from the original Los Angeles campus, returned to Malibu in honor of the university's 75th anniversary, dedicated September 19, 2012. Welcome home, Dolores. If you don't mind, I'm going to have an Eastwood moment for just a second. Now, Dolores, I know you're wondering, are you safe? And I can't promise that you are. And I know about that prank in 1966 where you ended up in that wooden casket. That must have been so frightening for you. And I know about the time in 1982 when they cut you off just above your painted toenails. And that must have really hurt, Dolores. But in all of this, we love you. And you're probably wondering about the Rock. Well, the Rock is a great tradition, and through the years, the Rock has been a for you. And students paint the Rock. They used to actually take the Rock to Las Vegas and set it in front of the city buildings in Las Vegas. And then we got a bigger rock, and then the students buried the rock. And then we finally set it in a situation where it's not going anywhere. And then Mr. Pepperdine, you know Mr. Pepperdine, the students stole him one time. And so we're really going to watch all this. You'll notice that Mr. Pepperdine's bolted down carefully. The rock is not going to be moved, and we think we've got you in a situation where you're not going anywhere. But Dolores, the party's over for you. You're not traveling the world anymore. You're here on this campus, and we're counting on you to build school spirit and to be a rallying place for Pepperdine students in the future, to remind us of our past as we prepare ourselves for the future. We are delighted to have you here. They're going to probably paint you and put you in funny clothes and you're going to be the subject of a lot of fun over the years, but remember in all that, Dolores, we love you just as we love so much your alma mater and ours, Pepperdine University. Welcome home, sweet Dolores. Thank you very much for being here today. God bless each and every one of you.